Okay, in this very quick video, I'm going to show you how to create a grabbable object in your VR scene. Um, the first thing that I want to say is if you ever forget how to do this, you can always go back to your VR template map. And I do recommend to create always a new map when you're working on your project and not modifying this map because you can always come back here and see how things are done to replicate it. And so if we're reading here very quickly, what you start noticing is that I have my static mesh and right below it, I have a grab component. And that is what makes my grabbable object. The other thing that I have is that my static mesh is movable just as my grab component has to be movable. And there's other little things that I can add, like simulate physics, which means when I grab things and I release them, they fall. But that's not necessary. That being said, with this in mind, I can create my own grabbable object. So I'm going to go back to my new level. I didn't do anything on it, so I delete it. And the way that I'm going to do this is that I'm going to create a blueprint. And remember, if a mesh is an object, a blueprint is an object with a behavior. And so in this case, I just come to this area where you can see this map. You click in here, there's two ways. I'm going to do one first, which is new empty blueprint class. I'm going to choose an actor and I'm going to name my blueprint. I'm going to put it in this folder called blueprint, but if I didn't have a folder to keep things organized, I can right click here, say new folder, whatever I need, but I have a folder and I'm just going to name it first BP, my blueprint. What BP means is a preface that indicates this is a blueprint. And I want to make sure that I keep things organized because as my project gets larger, things get more difficult. So I say save my blueprint and I can say, remember, you can see it in here, my static mesh, my grab component. So I can start by saying add static mesh. And here is my static mesh. And the second thing is add my grab component. And if you see this is empty, it's because I haven't assigned any mesh to my static mesh. And just a quick aside, if you've never worked with blueprints before, what's happening in here is something similar to what's happening out here. Isn't it? I have sort of like an outliner to say it in a certain way on my left, and I have a contextual menu that changes depending on what I'm choosing. So my static mesh, if I come in here where it says static mesh, I can select any mesh. If I have imported meshes like FBXs, OBJs, GLBs, GLTFs, I can use them, or I can just choose one of the meshes in here. I'm going to use a cone. So if I do this, now this looks like a cone. And the last thing that I have to do, if you remember, is make sure this is movable and this is movable. As it is right now, if I say compile and save, I can take this object. I'm going to minimize here, come to my content drawer and find it on my blueprints folder, and I can drop it on my scene. And these will be grabbable. However, I won't be able to throw it. If I want things to behave like physically accurate objects, I have to simulate physics. This is not activated by default, by the way, and enable gravity. And so just like that, I created my first blueprint that I can use in VR. And again, this is all working because I'm using the VR template where I have already these components like my grab component. I realized that I said I'm going to show you the second way and I never did it. So I'm coming back here to show you the second way. The second way to do this is instead of having an object out here, like an object that I create from scratch, I could have something on my scene. Let's say that I already set my scene and I added my things. Let's say that this cube is exactly where I want it to be. What I can do is that I can choose my cube, I can select it, and just in this same menu where I can create my blueprints, I can say convert selection to blueprint class. And same thing, I want to find the location. This is a perfect location. I want it to be in my folder called blueprints, and I'm going to name this BP right before cube. I don't have to have the blueprint at the end. I'm going to say select. And as you can see right now, my static mesh is already holding this. I can still change my mind. I could change my mind later and change this mesh if I wanted. For now, I'm just going to keep it like that. And I do the exact same thing. I say grab component. And I want to make sure that my grab component is the child of my mesh. And in this case, actually, because this object was out here as a static mesh, if you notice, my mobility is by default in a static. So if I were to run this right now on VR, I wouldn't be able to grab it. These wouldn't be grabbable and it would have an error. So make sure you change it to movable. Again, compile, save, and in this case, forgot to add physics. I'm going to compile, I'm going to save. Now, these two objects are grabbable objects. Remember that because blueprints are um, assets within an instance, I can create variations of this blueprint, but keeping the same behavior. So I can come in here and I can say I'm going to change this for a cylinder. This is specific mesh, and this is a cylinder, and this is a cube. But the important thing is that they have the exact same behavior, which is grab.